Have you ever felt like something invisible is holding you back? Not people, not money, not your past, just something. A force you cannot explain. A weight you carry every single day. And no matter how hard you try, you always seem to end up in the same place. What if I told you the prison trapping your life has no walls, no bars, no locked doors, because the prison exists inside your own mind? And the most terrifying part, you built it yourself, not on purpose, not overnight, but one thought, one fear, one habit at a time. Every prison begins with a single brick. Your first brick may have been a sentence. You're not good enough. Be realistic. Don't dream too big. People like us don't become successful. Maybe nobody says those words anymore, but your mind still does, every single day. The strange thing about the human mind is that it doesn't care whether a belief is true. It only cares whether it has been repeated. Repeat something long enough, and your brain stops questioning it. It accepts it, then protects it. Eventually, it becomes part of your identity. That's how invisible prisons are created. Not through chains, but through beliefs. Think about your own life. How many things have you never tried, simply because you already decided you would fail? How many opportunities disappeared, not because they were impossible, but because you convinced yourself they were? The prison always speaks before you do. It whispers, stay where it's safe. Don't embarrass yourself. What if they laugh? What if you fail? What if you're not enough? And little by little, those whispers become your voice. You stop hearing the prison because you think it is you. That is how powerful it becomes. The prison doesn't force you to stay. It convinces you that leaving is dangerous. It tells you comfort is security. It tells you routine is peace. It tells you dreams are unrealistic. And one day, without even noticing, you stop chasing your future. You start protecting your cage. You defend it. You justify it. You explain it. You even become proud of it. Because accepting the prison feels easier than escaping it. Look around. Millions of people wake up every morning, not asking, what can I become, but asking, how can I avoid discomfort today? That single question quietly decides their entire future. Because every great life begins with an uncomfortable decision. The problem is, your prison hates discomfort. It will always choose what is familiar, even if what is familiar is making you miserable. Think about that. How many times have you stayed in situations you hated, simply because they were familiar? How many dreams have you buried, because your prison convinced you that safety was more important than purpose? Most people believe freedom means having more money, more time, more opportunities. But real freedom begins somewhere else. Real freedom begins the moment you question the prison. The moment you stop saying, this is just who I am, and start asking, who taught me to believe this? Because maybe you were never weak. Maybe you were trained to believe you were. Maybe you were never incapable. Maybe you simply practiced fear longer than courage. And if a prison can be built brick by brick, it can also be destroyed brick by brick. But first, you must be willing to admit something most people never will. The prison isn't outside, it's inside. And the key has been in your hands all along. Before you can escape your prison, you must answer one question. Who built it? Was it your parents? Your teachers? Your friends? Society? Failure? Fear? The answer is all of them. And none of them. Because every experience in your life left something behind. Not just memories. Programs. Imagine your mind as an empty room. Every person you meet leaves a sentence on the wall. Every painful experience adds another brick. Every rejection adds another lock. Every failure builds another wall. Until one day, you wake up inside a prison you don't even remember building. That is why two people can experience the exact same event, yet become completely different people. One rejection makes someone stronger. The same rejection destroys someone else. Why? Because events do not control your life. Meaning does. Your mind gives meaning to everything. Fail once, and your prison whispers, "You are a failure. Get rejected." And it whispers, "No one will ever choose you." Make one mistake, and suddenly you believe you are the mistake. That is how prisons grow. Not through reality, through interpretation. Carl Jung once suggested that until we bring unconscious patterns into awareness, they continue influencing our lives. Most people think they are making decisions. They are not. They are reacting. Reacting to wounds. Reacting to fear. Reacting to stories they accepted years ago. Think about your daily life. Why do you avoid certain conversations? Why do you fear taking risks? Why do compliments make you uncomfortable? Why do you constantly compare yourself to others? Every answer leads back to another brick. The prison is intelligent. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't chain your body. It chains your identity. It convinces you, "This is just who I am. I've always been like this. I can't change." But listen carefully. If you learned it, you can unlearn it. If your mind built it, your mind can rebuild it. Nothing is more dangerous than confusing your programming with your personality. You are not your fear. You are not your anxiety. You are not your excuses. You are not your past. Those are things you learned, not things you were born with. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every painful experience, someone places another stone inside. At first, it feels light. You barely notice it. But years pass. More stones, more disappointments, more fear, more beliefs. Eventually, you become exhausted. Not because life became heavier, because you've been carrying unnecessary weight for years. And the strangest part, you forgot you were carrying it. You call it normal. You call it life. But what if the life you're calling normal is actually survival? Most people never ask themselves, what am I carrying that no longer belongs to me? Instead, they keep adding more weight, more comparison, more guilt, more regret, more fear, until they believe suffering is simply part of being alive. It isn't. The prison survives because you never question it. The walls remain standing because you stopped looking at them. The day you become aware, the prison begins to crack, because awareness is terrifying to every lie you've been telling yourself. The prison fears only one thing: a person who starts asking questions. Why do I believe this? Who taught me this? Is this actually true, or have I simply repeated it for years? Those questions are the first hammer striking the wall. And once the first crack appears, everything begins to change. The moment you see the prison, it loses part of its power, because a lie survives only while it remains invisible. The prison was never built from steel. It was built from repetition. Years of telling yourself, I'm not ready, I'm too late, I'm not smart enough, I'm not confident enough, I'm waiting for the right time. But here's the truth. There is no perfect moment. There is only the moment you stop obeying the prison. Think about this. Every great transformation in history started with one decision. Not certainty, not confidence, a decision. People think confidence comes first. It doesn't. Action comes first. Confidence follows. Your prison wants the opposite. It says, wait until you feel ready. But if you wait to feel ready, you may spend your entire life waiting. Because fear disappears only after you walk through it, not before. Imagine standing in front of a locked door. For years, you believed it was impossible to open. You walked past it every day, never touching the handle, never trying. One day, you place your hand on the handle. You push, and the door opens. It was never locked. The prison wasn't keeping you inside. Your belief was. That is what happens with fear. Fear loves imagination. Reality is usually much smaller. Most people suffer twice. First, inside their imagination. Then, inside reality. Sometimes, the first suffering is the only one that ever existed. How many conversations have you avoided? That would have changed your life? How many opportunities disappeared? Because your imagination defeated you before reality even had the chance. Your prison feeds on hesitation. Every second you delay, it grows stronger. Every excuse you repeat, another brick is added. Every time you betray your own goals, the walls become higher. But every courageous action removes a brick. Every uncomfortable decision weakens the prison. Every promise you keep to yourself builds freedom. Freedom is not a destination. Freedom is a habit. Just like fear, just like discipline, just like confidence. You don't suddenly become fearless. You become someone who acts despite fear. That is the difference. The strongest people in the world are not fearless. They simply refuse to let fear make their decisions. Your identity changes the moment your actions change. Not your thoughts, not your intentions, your actions. Because your brain believes evidence. If you repeatedly prove to yourself that you are courageous, eventually, your mind accepts it. If you repeatedly prove that you keep your word, eventually, your identity changes. You stop saying, I want to become disciplined. You become someone who is disciplined. That is the real escape. Not changing your circumstances, changing your identity. The prison cannot survive when the person who built it no longer exists. And maybe that is the hardest part, because escaping the prison means saying goodbye to the version of yourself that lived inside it, the version that always needed approval, the version that feared failure, the version that chose comfort over purpose, the version that believed small dreams were safer. You don't hate that version. You thank them, because they were trying to protect you. But protection has an expiration date. What kept you safe yesterday may keep you trapped tomorrow. There comes a moment when survival is no longer enough, when you realize you were not born simply to exist. You were born to become. So today, ask yourself one question. If fear disappeared for the next 24 hours, what would you do? Now ask yourself something even more important. Why are you waiting? Because one day, you will either tell the story of how you escaped your prison, or the story of how you spent your entire life decorating it. The choice has always been yours. MindBite. The prison was never the walls. The prison was believing they were real. يتبع في الجزء الثاني.